Hello, everyone. We are here to make you better, faster, and stronger with AppDynamics. My name is Odile Aslan. I'm here today with Ruth Lahan. We're customer success managers at AppDynamics. And the first thing that I'd like to do is to understand who is in the room. So please raise your hands if you're already customers of AppDynamics. Thank you, a good part of the room. Well, this is great because this session will provide you the tools to assess your current use of AppDynamics, boost it, and take it to the next level. Now, raise your hands if you're considering buying AppDynamics or just want to know more about our company. Thank you. Well, this is great as well because in this session, you will learn what happens once you buy AppDynamics and how we work to ensure value post-sale. Now, I'd like to start this presentation by telling you a bit about what you'll get by the end of this presentation. We will provide you a pack that includes tangible things to do for you after the session. So tomorrow, when you go back to your office, or maybe not tomorrow, it's Friday. On Monday, when you go back to your office, you can download this material. It includes extensions, templates, for you to really assess your current use of AppDynamics, but also see, for those of you who are prospects, how AppDynamics can really boost your current environment. Now, back to the presentation, and here is what we know about you from our experience. You're probably here today because your company is looking to undergo digital transformation. It's a buzzy and beautiful word. But what that means is that your customers have higher expectations. They want things to happen faster and faster. Right? When you order an Uber, you don't want to wait more than 5 to 6 minutes for the Uber to arrive. And when we talk about software deployment, the first thing that we're looking into is software development. And for those of you who are developers in the room, I think you will agree with me if I say that you work in a very competitive environment. And you need to be more agile in your processes. One of the things that you will do to be more agile is to release code quicker, maybe from twice a year to once a month to even once every hour. And that's great, right? It's great. Let operations deal with it now. Of course, the more releases, the more incidents. For those of you who are in operations, while developers have found a way to release code maybe twice as fast, it just adds twice as many incidents, maybe more. It just adds more pressure to your work. You got woken up at 5 a.m. because there was an outage. And while all of this is happening, for those of you who are part of business teams, you only see the end-user impact. When you have an incident, your customers are not calling you because there was a problem with the call to the database. No. They're actually complaining on the social media. They're going to leave your website. They might uninstall your application, but you don't know why, because you don't know the business impact of all of these technical issues that might happen. Now, the good news is, and as you know, AppDynamics is here to help. We give you the ability to release code quicker, to get ahead of issues before they even arise, and in fact, tie all of this information to its business impact. And we, as customer success team, we're responsible to ensure this values post-sale. And we do this because we know that the route that you'll take from installing a software to actually adopting a software, this route can be complex. It can have many variations. And the type of route that you're going to take depends on many parameters. Depends on your company, your team structure, your processes. And most companies don't give you specifics on how to ensure value post-sale. But we do, and this is really what differentiates us. We connect pre- and post-sale value for you to get the best out of using AppDynamics. We're thought leaders in this space, and we have developed a methodology that we have proven with more than 100 customers globally to help them see tangible change in their business. And today, I would like to walk you through that methodology and that journey to success. Now, to start off with that journey to success, you need to know where you are and where you want to go. Now, how do you do that? You do that with data. And from our experience, we have found the 4 value realization indicators that allows you to effectively assess your adoption at a specific time. The first indicator is the number of applications, and actually the type of applications. We often talk about application intelligence, but intelligence doesn't really matter if you're not monitoring the critical applications within your company, the ones that are customer-facing, revenue-generating. And once you have identified those, then you can determine the number of licenses that you need to use to monitor these applications. And you may think the number of licenses is quite of a simple metric. It isn't. It isn't because when you buy AppDynamics, you buy a specific number of licenses that goes with AppDynamics to achieve specific values. So you need to identify the number of licenses that you're actually using out of the number of licenses you have bought to see where you are in your adoption journey. Next thing you need to ensure value is actually people logging into the platform, monitoring your applications and your activity. Which leads me to the third VRI, the number of active users. If you're looking at incidents and critical incidents, you need to understand whether you're going to involve 10 people in operations, 5 in dev, maybe 20 people in operations. This all depends on your company, and you need to determine that. Now, I said earlier that in order to be data-driven, you need to know where you are and where you want to go. And actually, the number of applications, the license consumption, and the number of active users will allow you to understand where you are at a specific time. Now, in order to answer where you want to go, you need to know what your goals are. And these goals are what we call the value cases. Those are the reasons behind you are looking into buying AppDynamics or you have bought AppDynamics. Are you looking to reduce the number of incidents? Reduce the mean time to resolution? Are you looking to increase the revenue by 10%? And in what time frame? This all depends on your company. But you need to track your activity and evaluate the impact that you have with this VRI framework. Now, this journey to success with these 4 VRIs have been proven from all of our engagements with customers. And if you follow these 4 VRIs, the number of applications, license consumption, number of active users, and the value cases, I can guarantee you success with your journey with AppDynamics. Now, I talked about that exclusive pack. I never lie. So the first thing that you're going to get is an extension for those of you who are clients already that will allow you to extract the number of users that are currently using the platform on a daily basis. So you can start already assessing your adoption level with AppDynamics. Now, there's a second piece to that data-driven methodology. It goes beyond the number of applications. It actually drills down to the application itself to understand whether AppDynamics has been implemented to its full capability. And this model is called the application maturity model. And my fellow customer success manager, Ruth Lahan, will walk you through this model in more detail. Please welcome on stage Ruth Lahan.
Thank you, Odile. Thank you, Odile. So as Odile has introduced, this is our application maturity model. We have worked alongside our customers as customer success managers to create this model in order to allow you to get the most out of your investment with AppDynamics. The first of these may seem simple to most of you. It is simply installing the agents that you've purchased with AppDynamics. But if you think back to what Odile said, installation does not equal adoption with AppDynamics. It is only that first part of your journey to success with AppDynamics. So simply installing the agents will gain you 1 star in our application maturity model. Next up, we have business transactions. For those of you that are customers, which seems to be most of you in the room, you should be familiar with this term. But for those of you that are new to AppDynamics or haven't heard the term, what do I mean when I say business transactions? Well, business transactions are the key pathways in your application that are crucial to your business and your customers. So let's take an example. Say we have an e-commerce application. You want to ensure that your users can log in, add to basket, and check out. Because if they can't do that, your business and your revenue is impacted, and your customers are very dissatisfied with the experience on your application. So making sure that these key, crucial business transactions in your environment, in your application, are monitored and customized with AppDynamics, you make sure that you configure these business transactions well, and that will give you 2 stars in our application maturity model. Next up, we have health rules and alerting. So with AppDynamics, we want to help you be as proactive as possible with your business and your applications. So we want to make sure that if anything deviates from baseline, whether it's a spike in errors, a spike in response time, that straight away you can be alerted and hopefully fix that issue before it impacts your business and your users and your revenue at the end of the day. So making sure that these health rules and alerts are configured and customized to each of your applications will gain you 3 stars on our application maturity model. Next up, we have dashboards. Dashboards are a great tool in AppDynamics to align everyone in your business so that everyone is looking at a common goal and everyone is seeing the same visualization of your applications and their performance. So making sure that you customize these dashboards and that they're not just simply a picture on the wall in your office, but they're actually a tool for you seeing into your application and spotting any errors so that you can be as proactive as possible. I'm going to give a quick shout out to the session that's occurring next door. After this session, obviously, don't run right now. But that session is going to be from our king of dashboarding here at AppDynamics, Andy Jackson. And he's going to give you loads of tips and tricks on how to get the most out of dashboarding within AppDynamics. So I'd highly recommend, if you're interested in dashboarding, that you move over to this session at the break. Last up in our application maturity model, we have those extra features in AppDynamics. So whether that's EUM, so end user monitoring, and enabling that to see your user's experience, where they're coming from, so that you can get the most and make sure that they're having a great experience. Or, for example, it may be enabling the cognition engine. As you heard today in the keynote this morning, the cognition engine is a great new feature that is coming into AppDynamics at the moment. Or it may be enabling analytics to get that deeper, really granular level into what's happening and what your users are doing within your application. So that is the 5-star maturity model. It enables you to get the most out of the functions and features of AppDynamics for each one of your applications. As Odile mentioned, this again is a template that you can download after this session. It was made by us alongside our customers, so feel free to customize it to your needs and make sure you're getting the most out of AppDynamics. Back to you, Odile.
Thank you. As Ruth mentioned, it is critical to leverage this application maturity model in addition to the VRIs to really complete this data-driven approach. Next, it is essential to focus on business value. Why? Because as more and more people engage with AppDynamics, it is important for each individual to capture the impact of their work compared to the company's initial objectives and measure it. One effective way to do that is by leveraging our value-back template. This template is really powerful and already leveraged by a lot of customers. It's really powerful because it gives you a quick snapshot of the work that you're doing. You're showing very quickly the issue that you're solving, the solution that you have implemented leveraging AppDynamics, but also the value that you're creating for the company. You know, we may spend hours and days looking at incidents, but when we look at incidents that are really critical to our company, then that means that we're saving value for the business that has an impact on the revenue, but also on the brand reputation. Now, we'll provide you this template as part of our exclusive pack. And in order to provide you some guidance on how to fill it out, let me walk you through the example that Ronak from my team showed you earlier with the dashboards, a real-life example from one of our banks that we're working with in Europe. So for this bank, because it's an investment bank, what's really important is that they needed to ensure a perfect end-user experience, but also making sure that their trading platform was always up and running. Now, while they were monitoring this application, they realized that their trade platforms went down for 40 minutes, and that impacted 10 trades. They were alerted by that via AppDynamics baselining capability, and they sent that alert to the operations team via their preferred alerting system, which is Slack. The operations team, in just a few minutes, find the root cause of that issue, and they realized that it was due to their recent A/B test release. So that meant that while some of the customers were able to click on complete booking, others were actually seeing the 404 error. The good news is, for those clients who were seeing the 404 error and unable to go through the transaction, they could find the contact details of them and call them back. Now, as you have heard this morning, the feedback from the clients who were called back were really positive. They were really positively surprised that their bank were calling them to really help them to go through that transaction. So even though this issue happened, the brand reputation stayed intact. And also, because they called them back to help them go through the transaction, they saved 50% of the transaction, which means that they recovered $100,000 for this company. So when you look at an outage, you're probably saving millions of dollars to a company. And it's very, very important to record it and put it in a template, in this value back template, to show very quickly what you're working on and what you're generated, both from a technical and business perspective. Now, being data-driven and really capturing the value that you're creating gives you a quick snapshot of what your adoption looks like in one specific time. But in order to use this data to drive the digital transformation in your company, you need to drive coordination between teams. And you can be that voice for really impactful and meaningful change within your company. And you can be the agent of transformation that will help others get on board and see the value of this technology even further, so you can really drive a technology strategy together as a business. One way of really advocating the work that you're doing and to show the product that you're working on is by sharing this value byte templates. I mentioned earlier that this template is really, really powerful. It's powerful because, again, in one quick snapshot, you're showing the technical issues, but also the value you're creating. So share this between members of the same team, across teams, but also, because you're showing the value, share this to key stakeholders within the business. Next, you can give demos. Nothing is going to advocate the technology better than actually showing the platform, showing the product that you're working on. As an example, United Airlines, one of our major customers, spends still today 50% of their time just showing the platform. They keep pulling people from everywhere to show what they're working on. And really, that will help others relate to their business problem and implement the solutions within their business units. And we'll give you a reference demo from one of our SE as part of that exclusive pack as well. Next, a third way of energizing people is by running competitions. There's a lot of competition types that you can run, but the dashboard competition has been proven to be one really effective way to really boost the activity and really energize people around what you're doing. And Ruth will give us some tips and tricks around dashboard competitions that we have run with clients.
Thank you, Odile. So as Odile has mentioned, a dashboard competition is a great way to energize your teams. If we think back to what Odile spoke about earlier, being data-driven, so we use 4 key VRIs, 4 key value realization indicators in order to track where you are currently in your adoption of AppDynamics, but more importantly, where you want to go and how you get there. So a dashboard competition is a great way to energize your teams, get people excited, and get a little healthy competition going. As my manager and the rest of my team will say, I work best under pressure. When I'm getting a bit competitive with my teammates, it's probably when I do my best work. So getting your teams involved in a dashboard competition is a great way to not only promote teamwork and collaboration in your teams, You can also generate new ideas, share those ideas, and at the end of the day, get some great quality dashboards that you can use in your office on a daily basis to be more proactive with AppDynamics. As I mentioned earlier, next up in Breakout Room 2, Andy Jackson will be going through tips and tricks on dashboarding. In the second section of his presentation, he will be detailing the dashboard competition that we ran recently at BP. It was a great success, and it really meant that their teams could collaborate and share ideas and their passion for AppDynamics. Not only this, Andy will be joined on stage by one of our agents of transformation in BP, Eamon Asaf, and Eamon will be going through the real benefit that he found was good for his teams when running this dashboard competition. So make sure to check that session out after this. Another company that we worked with recently in running a dashboard competition was Emirates. Emirates leadership have said that this was a great fun way to drive adoption, and it really linked into their culture of innovation and collaborative activity for their teams. So I would highly recommend, from customer success to you as customers, to get your teams energized and get them using AppDynamics through running a dashboard competition. As Odile mentioned earlier on, we want to give you action items following on from this presentation. We want to give you the tips and tricks that will enable you to run a dashboard competition in your company next week. So what we're going to do is we're going to provide you with a fact sheet, which will give you all the details on how to run your own dashboard competition in your organization. So to loop back to how Odile started this presentation, we're going to give you some free stuff. We don't want this to just be another presentation that you can't actually go into your business and implement from Monday onwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you this exclusive pack straight away after this presentation. And what does that include? It includes 5 templates and scripts for you to use. The first 2 of these are data-driven. So it enables you to be as data-driven as possible in your journey to success with AppDynamics. The first of these is the Daily Active User extension, which Odile mentioned earlier. This will allow you, whether you're on SaaS or on-prem with AppDynamics, to straight away figure out how many people are logging in and actively using AppDynamics on a daily basis. This will allow you to energize your teams and set a goal of how many people you want to be using AppDynamics. The second of these is the application maturity model, which I detailed earlier. It's a 5-star scale for maximizing value with AppDynamics in a scorecard version. So again, this template will be available for download straight away. Third up, we have value bites. So Odile really talked about how powerful these value bites can be. So it's not only about your teams using AppDynamics, but it's about showing that positive value that you're getting from AppDynamics. So you can not only encourage other people to use it, but you can show what great work you're doing in being more proactive and preventing issues and incidents for your business and your customers. So again, this is another template that will be available in this pack. Fourth, we have the demo training. So one of our pro SEs has recorded about a 10-minute video for you, so you can learn how to demonstrate AppDynamics within your business. Because there's no better way to energize people and encourage them to use AppDynamics than to show them. So this video hopefully will inspire you and teach you how to do that to its best possible capabilities. And last up, we have the dashboard competition guide, which I spoke through a few moments ago. This is a quick fact sheet which will enable you to get dashboard competitions up and running in your business come Monday morning. How do you get this adoption pack? This is an exclusive adoption pack for those people, you in the room, who are attending AppD Tour London. So go ahead and scan this QR code on your phones, take a picture of it, or simply go to this bit.ly link, and you'll straight away be able to download all of the templates and scripts available today. So feel free to customize these and use them whatever way you see fit in your company. They're made by us at Customer Success, and we want to make sure that we help you along your journey to success with AppDynamics. Back to you, Odile.
Thank you. So today, really, you have learned about how when you partner with AppDynamics, we provide you the tools to ensure value post-sale through our industry-leading methodology. And also, you had more details around how we guide you in this digital transformation. Now, everything that we have shared with you today is what we have learned from our experience, but also what we have successfully implemented on client site. Now, let's hear today about actually one of my clients, Nationwide, from John Wilson, on how they tackle adoption at Nationwide. Please welcome on stage John Wilson.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Wilson, and I'm a performance monitoring tooling designer at Nationwide Building Society. So I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about the journey that Nationwide has been on and adopting AppDynamics. So I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. So I've worked in IT for about 13 years. I'm conscious that I don't look old enough to work in IT for 13 years, but I promise you that is the case. And essentially, I started my career in IT operations. And then I moved into IT consultancy. I've also focused on application performance monitoring, and I did actually work for AppDynamics as a sales engineer before I joined Nationwide earlier in the year. So I've literally been that guy who's had to log on to servers in the middle of the night to trawl through logs to try and find what the root cause of a P1 is. But I've also seen what a difference the right tools and processes can make when it comes to investigating those problems. But anyway, we're not here to talk about me. Let's talk about Nationwide. So hopefully most of you are familiar with Nationwide. Certainly if you're from the UK, I hope you are. So it's a familiar sight in a lot of high streets. So Nationwide has its origins in the 19th century, so it's a very old institution. There's also, because of a series of mergers and acquisitions, Nationwide has become the largest building society in the world. So it's the second largest mortgage provider in the UK. There's about 15 million members. So statistically, it's probably likely that some of you have got some Nationwide products. Now, that legacy is important to Nationwide, that history, but it inherently brings complexity as well. I'll talk about the technology that Nationwide uses. So it's a lot of Microsoft technology, sort of .NET and SQL, but we've also got old technology, mainframes. I do literally think there are some older than me, and SAP. But also there's new technologies as well. So things like microservices, cloud technology, serverless. Nationwide is embracing these. It's been well documented in the press that Nationwide is engaged in this digital transformation, investing heavily in that. So all of that together, that legacy, the technology, and our roadmap, it adds complexity to managing that system. So I'll give you an idea as to what that might look like. So here's an example of a system that could be as complex as something at Nationwide, and how AppDynamics visualizes that data. So if you're not familiar with AppDynamics, those green circles, they could contain potentially hundreds of components. So for me, trying to do it in the old school way, logging on to each of those servers would be really unmanageable. So AppDynamics visualizes that complexity for us and the communication between them. But really, this complexity is what our members rely on in order to do what they're trying to do. So Nationwide Building Society, if you're accessing maybe the internet bank or using the banking app, applying for a mortgage, or if you go into a branch, what you're doing is reliant on the technology. So it's really important to Nationwide that these things are working correctly. So it's why we focused on the platinum services initially, so that we could roll out the correct performance monitoring on those. So why does Nationwide need APM in the first place? Well, I'd like to talk to you about Nationwide's culture, its values. So pride is a summary of that. So each letter represents one of our core values. Now, I won't talk about them in any great detail, but the first one is relevant to APM. So the P is for putting members and their money first. So essentially what that means is that if the performance of an application is poor, well, then the Nationwide members are not able to do what it is that they want to do. It means that they can't move their money around or do what they intend to do. So it means that they have a negative view of Nationwide. So the performance of the application is really linked to a core value at Nationwide. Now, to give you a little bit of background on that, so a few years ago, Nationwide started looking at the run part of the organization and how that could be optimized. Now, as part of that, there were some changes that happened. So an ECC, or Enterprise Control Center, was set up, which uses state-of-the-art technology. Imagine a big room with lots of screens in to allow you to monitor what your members are doing. So Nationwide set that up. But as part of that, it was identified that there was a gap in our tooling, particularly in the APM space. So that's why we started engaging with various vendors to look at APM tools. Now, the driver for that was to move from a very reactive state of waiting for a server to fail and then fixing it, to move towards being more proactive and then ultimately predictive in our approach to performance monitoring. Now, in order for us to do that, we needed to reduce the amount of effort that was required to get to the root cause of a problem and automate that as much as possible rather than relying on manual processes. So why did we look at AppDynamics? Well, that automatic component mapping, where we can see distributed technology and the relationship between these components, was really key. We needed to see what we had in order to be able to monitor it. It's not just seeing it, but we needed to understand if the performance of those components was actually doing what we wanted it to. So the baselining of every metric was really important. The baselining is what allows Nationwide to be proactive, to fix things before they impact the members, because we can see when performance starts to deviate away from normal. Also, that single tool across the teams, so various different skill sets, they were able to utilize AppDynamics regardless of the particular discipline that they knew, and that could drive collaboration and efficiency between those teams. And finally, the security. Obviously, security is important to every organization, but particularly financial services. So AppDynamics was able to meet Nationwide's strict security concerns, even with the SaaS controller. So let's talk about our rollout and adoption journey at Nationwide. Now, it reminds me quite a lot, actually, of my career in IT operations, how it started off as a very reactive approach, then moved towards being more proactive, and then eventually predictive. So those three categories of being reactive, proactive, and predictive, they actually align to our adoption journey. So I'll talk you through each one of those and how that links to Nationwide's journey. So first of all, we were very reactive. So essentially what that meant is that we deployed AppDynamics in our initial project, but we'd have to wait for people to approach us when they saw maybe a flow map or a dashboard. So outside of that initial project, not many people knew about AppDynamics. Now, because we'd automated the agent deployment, technically we could move quite quickly. So we could deploy agents without too much difficulty, but there was still not really that knowledge or understanding of the benefit of AppDynamics. So it was still in a very reactive state. People would approach APM SMEs within Nationwide to ask questions as to whether they could have that level of monitoring. When in the other reactive state would be after there was an incident. So people would approach the monitoring SMEs and say, perhaps you could help us understand why there was a problem. But this was always after the incident had already happened. So again, it was in a very reactive state. So what the monitoring team did is focus on a few initiatives to drive adoption of AppDynamics outside of those initial stakeholders. We did this in a few ways. So the first of which was troubleshooting training. So when there was an incident and we were approached to see if we could find the root cause, we would work with the support teams to teach them how they could investigate the root cause themselves without relying on SMEs. This was done face-to-face, if possible, but obviously logistics sometimes prevented that, so we do it via WebEx. Also, there were examples of where some teams would have individuals that were using the old tools of investigation, and others were using the new tool, AppDynamics. Now, what that enabled us to do is actually monitor and measure which was quicker and easier according to those various teams. I'll come back to that in just a second. But always, in each of these examples, we would frame what was happening within AppDynamics around something that was familiar to those teams. It would typically be an incident, something that they were interested in. That was what allowed us to focus on something that was relevant to their team. So what was the result of these initiatives, these three initiatives that we went through as a monitoring team? Well, the results was that there was a reduction in the MTTR. So the mean time to resolution reduced. Now, in one example, there was an instance where an outage had happened, which the team had investigated for about 3 hours and not got to the root cause. And then somebody moved over to look at AppDynamics, and they were able to find the root cause in 5 minutes. So that stark contrast of 3 hours versus 5 minutes, that really resonated within Nationwide and drove that adoption. So what was next after the reactive approach? Well, this was being proactive. So in the proactive state, rather than allowing various parts of the business to ask us questions as monitoring SMEs around how AppDynamics could help, we would actually create value examples and then engage with those areas of the business. So we'd proactively go out and talk to them about the value that AppDynamics could bring. Now, a key part of doing that within Nationwide was to identify if there were strategic objectives that aligned to a specific department. So I've put some examples up on the slide, general examples, but pretty much examples that apply to what everybody's trying to do. Things like protect your reputation, reduce the operational IT labor. These are typical things that most people are trying to do. So with that in mind, we would approach the various departments, align the value to one of the objectives that they were trying to achieve to make sure that the content resonated with them. So what else did we do in that proactive state? Well, we arranged drop-in sessions. Our big tip is to get AppDynamics to cater for these. Nothing draws people in like free food. So that's what we did at Nationwide. With those drop-in sessions, people were able to just discuss APM. What are people doing with AppDynamics? Maybe you're trying to solve the same sort of problem that somebody else is trying to solve in their department. So this sort of drove collaboration between the various departments at Nationwide. Also, the Center of Excellence was set up with a Yammer group, or it might be Slack or something else, to enable that virtual collaboration. So that's, again, what we did within Nationwide. And that really drove constructive conversations between different departments that maybe wouldn't normally interact with each other. They could do that because they were using AppDynamics. And what we'd always do is ensure that our demos were customized. So when we showed people what AppDynamics was, the content would vary based on who the department was. So as an example, you wouldn't show maybe a service owner deep code level visibility because they weren't really interested in that. But maybe a developer was, so we'd focus on that with a developer. So make sure that the content resonated with the various departments. Now, these are intentionally quite small, these examples that are on screen at the moment. So let me take one of them and just make it a little bit easier to see. Maybe the one around that reducing the MTTR, or the operational efficiency. So here's an example of that value that was captured and then sent out to the various teams. So it's suitably sort of blurred so that you can't make too much out about Nationwide. But essentially, it enables you to see how we identified the root cause of an issue at Nationwide. And it enables other people to identify what is the value of using that tool. So the MTTR was reduced. Now, the advantage of this is that it can easily be consumed by various different stakeholders. You can understand it, and you can forward it on and share it very easily as well. So what was the result of that proactive approach? Well, our license consumption went up. So as more service owners saw the value of AppDynamics, well, they wanted that coverage for the application they looked after. So the license consumption increased. But also with the training and the value examples that were sent, it meant that more people would log in to AppDynamics. Certainly as that collaborative tool was being used, people would want to be able to share in that. And so more people logged in. Now, I will clarify, I can't give you the exact numbers behind these percentages, but this is not 1 person to 2 person. It's significantly higher numbers than that, but maybe come and talk to me after about what those are exactly. So what's next in the Nationwide journey? So we've been reactive and then proactive. Well, next is being predictive. So what the monitoring SMEs are doing is working with our architects to understand what the emerging technology trends are in the industry. And then we can identify which of those technologies Nationwide is likely to adopt and how they fit into our performance monitoring strategy. So this is more than just technical. We need to understand how our processes might need to change in order to leverage these technologies to the advantage of the Nationwide members. So, for example, things like the AppDynamics cognition engine, it will require that we don't need a manual process to trawl through logs and compare them if a tool can do that for us. There's no need for us to define that manual process. And so we really need to understand the capabilities of AppDynamics in order to exploit them fully. Also, it's worth noting that this is a collaborative approach between Nationwide and AppDynamics. So Nationwide is able to feed into AppDynamics' roadmap to understand the sort of technologies that are important to us and the direction that Nationwide is heading. But also AppDynamics are able to feed back to Nationwide about features that might align to our strategy and what we're trying to achieve. So what would be my recommendations? Maybe something that anybody could take away from this session, irrespective of where you are in your AppDynamics journey. Well, I would say pick one thing that makes AppDynamics relevant. So it could be that you're trying to fix an incident, or maybe there is a high priority incident that's affecting your department, or maybe there's a larger sort of company goal. Start with that. Start with that single thing that makes AppDynamics relevant, and then use AppDynamics in order to troubleshoot that problem or to align it to that company goal. When you do that, capture that value in an example similar to the one that I used or that has been spoken about before by Odile. Capture that value and then share it with your peers. So what this will mean is that people can see the relevance of AppDynamics, how it relates to their working life or a company objective. Also, ask AppDynamics for help. So it's likely that whatever problem you're trying to solve is one that other people have tried to solve before you. So ask AppDynamics to help, align it to a company goal or to an objective. It's likely that they can help with that as they've done it before. Also, I would say that when AppDynamics come on site to help you with that, make sure that they buy you lunch. It's a consistent theme of this presentation. Odile constantly buys me coffee and lunch, so that's good. So that's everything from my presentation about Nationwide's adoption of AppDynamics. Now, I'll be around for the rest of the day if you have any further questions. Also, a number of my colleagues from Nationwide are in attendance as well. So come and find us if you'd like to learn any more about what we've discussed this afternoon. Thank you.